The Kansas City Chiefs regular season is already decided, but that does not mean that there is no more fun to be had. There are plenty of reasons to watch today's game versus the Denver Broncos, and we're going to go over them. The number one reason to watch today's game, or really the reason that validates the rest of the reasons to watch today's game, is that the Broncos still have to win. So they will be at max effort. Everything that we see today from these players who are currently mostly backups for the Kansas City Chiefs and striving for their role on next year's roster is going to be versus live fire. This is not going to be preseason type action where the fourth stringers are playing the fourth stringers. They're going to be going up against the first stringers for the Broncos. The Broncos are ostensibly a playoff team should they get this win. But even if they don't get this win, they are a team that is in position to be a playoff team. So this is not just another NFL team. They're a pretty good one. The main reason to watch today's game, in my opinion, is the offensive line. And we will start with the big immediate question, and that is DJ Humphries. DJ Humphries was a full participant this week, despite being listed on the injury reports, and I think it is likely that he plays some in this game in order to see what it is that he brings to the table and to make sure that he is in some type of functional shape for the playoffs. The Kansas City Chiefs have this week, then they have a bye week, and then they will begin their playoff journey. So there's still some time for DJ Humphries to get into complete game shape, that is 4-quarter, 60-snap shape. But I do expect him to make a go, and if and when he does make a go, we will see if he is, or maybe not completely assess this, but see if he is up to being better than Joe Thuney at the left tackle position, or will he just be a quality backup for the playoff run? The number two reason here, or the B point to the number two reason, is Hunter Nourzad. It is increasingly less likely that Trey Smith is a Kansas City Chief in 2025. He is going to be one of the marquee names in free agency. It is not often that a marquee name in free agency is an offensive guard. It is not often that a marquee name in free agency that is an offensive guard is going into just his second contract in the NFL. So he is going to get a lot of money from some team somewhere who has problems along the offensive line, the same way that Joe Thuney did when he signed with the Kansas City Chiefs. And you can't blame him for going, and you can't blame the Kansas City Chiefs for having all of their money tied up in other players, i.e. Patrick Mahomes. It would be a shame to cut Patrick Mahomes in order to re-sign Trey Smith. Hunter Nourzad is, in my opinion, the likely replacement next season should the Kansas City Chiefs look to their internal roster. He has played 0 offensive snaps so far this season and 75 special team snaps. Just looking at things real quickly between him and Trey Smith, I can never get these things cleanly on the same page, so he is 6'3" and 1/8 inch compared to the 6'5.5" Trey Smith. He is 317 pounds compared to the 321 of Trey Smith. He has 33 and 1/8 inch arms compared to 33 and 5/8 from Trey Smith. He has 10 and 3/4 inch hands versus 9 and 3/4 from Trey Smith. He did 27 bench press reps versus the 32 by Trey Smith. Those are the comparables that we have. I find it unlikely that he did run a 40 better than 5.11 that Trey Smith ran, and the other numbers, they're kind of neither here nor there with offensive linemen. So he's not quite the mauler that Trey Smith has proven to be during his time in the NFL. But if we're being honest with each other, look, Trey Smith is one of my favorite Kansas City Chiefs. He's been one of my favorite Kansas City Chiefs since they made the pick. If you've been around the channel for that long, you remember how highly I praised Trey Smith's violence the moment he was drafted by the Chiefs. He is sometimes, I won't say a liability, but he is less skilled as a pass blocker than he is as a run blocker. The Kansas City Chiefs like to throw the ball having the marquee player at the quarterback position. So while I don't know that Hunter Nourzad will be better than Trey Smith in the passing game, I think it's a possibility. He is, in my opinion, a very sound technical blocker. Sometimes that is where Trey Smith gets himself in trouble. Trey Smith is like the head-hunting safety, only he's 321 pounds and 6'5", right? So he will go for the kill shot, and sometimes that causes problems. The next name in the bunch here is C.J. Hansen, taken in the 7th round of this prior NFL draft. He has played no offensive snaps this season. He has played no special teams snaps this season. But he has been on the active roster all season, and in my opinion, that means he is likely in the long-term plans for the Kansas City Chiefs. He is an athletic offensive guard, and I think I have talked about many times on the channel that he has upside at the offensive tackle position. He had strong momentum heading into the draft, and that is despite coming from a small school. This is going to be interesting because if you are looking at things on a one-to-one translation, you are probably hoping that eventually C.J. Hansen can take the place of Joe Thuney at left guard. Joe Thuney moonlighting, by the way, at left tackle lately, so that comparison is there. But there is another comparison that is fitting, in my opinion, as well. And like I said, I can never get these things on the same page. Let's see if I can just move it down. That way it is easier to see here. That is Andrew Wiley. Andrew Wiley coming out of Eastern Michigan. C.J. Hansen is 6'5". Andrew Wiley was 6'5". C.J. Hansen is 300 pounds. Andrew Wiley was 304. C.J. Hansen had 32 and 3/8 inch arms compared to 33 and 3/8 inch by Andrew Wiley. That is where it's going to be a bit of a sticking point for C.J. Hansen, considering 33 is kind of the cutoff for offensive tackle, at least as far as Andy Reid likes to see it. C.J. Hansen has 9 and 3/8 inch hands, 9.5 inch hands on Andrew Wiley. Andrew Wiley had an impressive 5.14 40-yard dash, topped by the 5-second flat 40-yard dash from C.J. Hansen. That is 95th percentile. Andrew Wiley had a 34-inch vertical, very explosive for a guy his size, 33.5 for C.J. Hansen here. A 115-inch broad jump, slightly less than 10 feet there for C.J. Hansen, 9'7" for Andrew Wiley. I think that's the same thing, isn't it? I'm not going to convert the multiplication tables here in my head, but I think that is at least close. The 10-yard dash or the 10-yard split for C.J. Hansen, 176 compared to 174 for Andrew Wiley. So you have a lot of things that are very similar between these two players. Andrew Wiley, of course, was a UDFA from another team who ended up with the Kansas City Chiefs and was a guard in college, found his way to offensive tackle in the NFL, and started a Super Bowl for the Kansas City Chiefs. 2 Super Bowls, I think. Anyway, Kingsley Mataya. I still can't get that right, guys, and I apologize. Will we see Kingsley at guard while Humphries is at tackle? I think there is a world wherein the offensive line that we see to begin this game is left tackle DJ Humphries, left guard Kingsley Mataya, center Hunter Nourzad, right guard, or would left guard maybe be... There's a little bit... Wanya Morris will be on the field somewhere. Hunter Nourzad will be on the field somewhere. I think the interesting thing to see is, where do we see Kingsley Mataya? We have seen the offensive guard or the offensive line coach for the Kansas City Chiefs talk about how Mike Caliendo at left guard, Kingsley Mataya at right guard. I don't know how it's going to go exactly, but the first string offensive line in this game will be interesting to look at. And we have seen the offensive line coach for the Kansas City Chiefs talk about cross-training these players at different positions, a return to a former philosophy for the Kansas City Chiefs that the Kansas City Chiefs have kind of gotten away from for the past few seasons, bringing in offensive guards to play offensive guard, offensive tackles to play offensive tackle, etc. it will be a matter of settling these players into positions rather than finding guys that play a set position. Last night, Trey Hendrickson of destroying Kingsley Mataya fame, absolutely destroyed the Pittsburgh Steelers to the tune of 3 sacks. He only had 2 sacks on Kingsley Mataya, and this was en route to having 14 sacks this season. That was the game week 2 that got Kingsley Mataya benched. So, Kingsley's not garbage. We see that the guy who absolutely destroyed him at defensive end went on to destroy the entire NFL this season and might have gotten the Bengals into the playoffs because of it. So this will be an interesting game from the standpoint of seeing where it is that Kingsley plays, how much he plays, and how often he's on the field. Wanya Morris, will he play the entire game at right tackle? I think that we should probably start testing Wanya at the guard positions as well. If Jawan Taylor is your answer at right tackle, the left tackle position seems to not be figured out yet. So they will, in all likelihood, find a different answer at left tackle this offseason. That means that the competition for the offensive guard spot next year could be between Wanya Morris, the offensive guard spot vacated by Trey Smith, could be between Wanya Morris and Hunter Nourzad. So we will see how that all works out, but it would be interesting to see if Wanya Morris can supplant one of these tackle positions at the end of this season heading into next year. Then finally, along the offensive line, Ethan Driscoll, the UDFA out of Marshall. It will be interesting to see if Wanya plays guard at some point, because I would like to see Ethan Driscoll get some reps at offensive tackle. This game, he has not played at all this season. He played 3 snaps of special teams. I don't remember which game, but that happened. And I think that he has higher upside at offensive guard, sort of the opposite of CJ Hansen. Now, the measurables on Ethan Driscoll are these: 6'8" 3/8 inches, almost 6'9", 313 pounds, 35 3/8 inch arms, and 10.5 inch hands. The guy has been on the active roster all season. This is a sign that the Kansas City Chiefs really like him. Moving to the running back position, Carson Steele. What will we see from Carson Steele in this game? Andy Reid likes to have a fullback on the roster, and I think it's safe to say that Steele is likely to return in 2025. He has, I believe, a 3-year UDFA deal because he's been on the active roster all season. The standard for a UDFA is to sign a 3-year deal. Getting an extended look at him here to cap off his rookie season could go a long way in figuring out how versatile he really is. Is he only a fullback? Can he actually moonlight at halfback? Can he get those fumbling problems solved? His pre-draft measurables, every time I go over these, someone argues with me that he had different numbers. I can't find the sourcing for those numbers. The sourcing here is Wikipedia, but they list his pro day. But when you click on the link to the pro day numbers, it is from a pretty irreputable source. So the numbers that I can find for his pro day, because I can't find pro day numbers anywhere anymore almost, 6 foot and 5/8 inches. He's 6'1", he's 228 pounds. 4.77 40. He kind of looks like that on the field. 1.60 split is not terrible, but you're looking at a guy with a 37.5 inch vertical, 9 foot 8 inch broad jump, and 28 reps on the bench press with 225 pounds. Those are pretty good numbers for the fullback position. So if he can get the fumbling problem fixed, if he can figure out the pass blocking stuff that he needs to figure out for playing full-time in the NFL, it'll be interesting to see how much of next season's reps go towards having a fullback on the field in order to save the wear and tear from your feature back, Isaiah Pacheco, as Isaiah Pacheco has shown signs of being a little bit of injury concern with him. Now, here's One of the biggest ones, in my estimation, Nico Remigio. He has shown in the preseason that he is a versatile receiver who will sell out to make the catch. The Broncos, as we talked about earlier, will be fielding their starting defense. However, Carson Wentz is more than capable of getting him the football. This is his big-time opportunity to show the Chiefs that he can move up the depth chart next season. It needs to be remembered that Nuke Hopkins, Marquise Brown, Justin Watson, Juju Smith-Schuster, and Mecole Hardman are all free agents at the end of this season. Nico reminds me a little bit, and I've said this before, of Albert Wilson back in Mahomes' rookie season, and the irony here is thick. He started the final game of the regular season because it was a throwaway game. That was a throwaway game against the Denver Broncos. In that throwaway game against the Denver Broncos, Patrick Mahomes showed definitive consistency with Albert Wilson. That was a very similar situation to the situation in which Nico Remigio finds himself today. Albert Wilson was a great release valve for Patrick Mahomes in that game, and Mahomes has not had that type of cagey fighter at the wide receiver position since Albert Wilson left. Had a lot of different types of wide receivers, but never that guy. Will he get that guy returned to him next season in the form of Nico Remigio? Here's something that is worth keeping in mind also. The Kansas City Chiefs can't play just Mecole Hart or just Nico Remigio at the wide receiver position. There are guys who are going to have to play, and Nuke Hopkins, I don't think, unless he wants to go for the touchdown bonus, won't see the field at all. He's an older player. There's no reason to have him out there unless it's that. Xavier Worthy, I would like to see him learn some of the X position during this game. And I would tell Carson Wentz, if you throw him the ball, you will be finding your own transportation back home. And Marquise Brown should not see the field at all. Mecole Hardman is hurt. Juju Smith-Schuster and Justin Watson should both be on the field for a lot of snaps in this game. Juju has had 227 yards this year, and Justin Watson 284. Disappointments, you would probably consider that for both of these players. This has been kind of a wash of a season for both of these guys as far as their careers are concerned. But they have been glue guys for the team. If Nico makes a name for himself, the Chiefs are unlikely, in my opinion, to keep both or to re-sign both Juju Smith-Schuster and Justin Watson. So this game could be a proving grounds for which one of those guys is most likely to stay. I would add Mecole to this list as well, but obviously he is out. Moving on to the defensive side of things, starting with the defensive line. The Chiefs have had a difficult time this season figuring out rotation players. No one from those backup positions seems to want to stand up and take the role. So Felix and Udike Uzama, I suspect, will get a very long look in this game. They are going to give him the snaps and the opportunity to make himself, to prove himself for next year. He's played a little bit more this season, and he has made a decent impact per snap basis, but he still does not look like a weapon for the defense. So the reps today should go a long way in figuring out who FAU really is. Malik Herring next. Malik Herring is likely to end the season with roughly the same number of snaps as last season. Roughly the same type of production, except that last year he had a sack and a half. He is also set to be a free agent at the end of this year. At this point, I don't see them bringing Malik Herring back. If they do, I think it will be a training camp contract, and he will have to earn his way onto the team. I think they're going to likely bring in other names to compete at that defensive end position. What about the defensive tackle spot? Well, we've got two names there as well. Derek Nottie, as well, is set to become a free agent at the end of this year for just about the 9th season in a row. He has played the fewest snaps of his career this season, and he's done it for $2 million. Not bad work if you can get it. He has not shown up on film very much. He has not flashed, I would contend, basically at all this season. And I would imagine that if Brett Veach has anything to say about it, he will not be back next year. That said, Brett Veach has tried everything to find himself a run-stuffing defensive tackle, and it's just not happening. Marlon Tuipulotu has played 13 snaps this season. 13 snaps. He has potential as an athletic defensive tackle, but he has never played more than 232 snaps in any season of his career. So this game could go a long way in figuring out if he is a reserve defensive tackle candidate for the roster. I don't see that working out for the Kansas City Chiefs. I don't see that working out for Marlon. But I guess figure out if he's a gamer as opposed to a practice body. And finally, Joshua Uche, listed at linebacker by the team. Pardon me, my eye. Something is in my eye. He's listed as a linebacker. Obviously, he plays edge. He's played 37 snaps since coming to Kansas City. It is unlikely, in my opinion, that Uche returns, but give him the reps here to see if there's something there worth working with. Linebacker is actually a little bit more interesting after the past couple of weeks. Nick Bolton is likely gone in 2025. They will need to have a strong third linebacker. I imagine Leo plays the middle. I imagine Drew Tranquil is your outside, and you're looking for an outside linebacker unless you find a middle linebacker that can push Leo back to the outside. They will probably draft/sign one. I imagine draft one, but they will give opportunities to a couple of guys on this roster. One of those being Cam Jones. Cam Jones played 81 snaps of defense last year, and he's played 6 so far this season. Also, he's already a year older than Nick Bolton. So what are we looking at with Cam Jones? Well, he's 6'1", which is fairly short for middle linebacker. He's 226 pounds, which is fairly light for a linebacker, or a middle linebacker. And basically kind of subpar everywhere, except for, interestingly, the Chiefs have a couple guys who have short arms, 29th percentile, but long wingspans, 84th percentile, meaning that their shoulders are about 1.5 miles wide. I don't think Cam Jones has starting linebacker potential. I think that he is a decent reserve to have, but get him out there, get the reps, and see what you have. Blake Lynch, recently signed. Will be interesting to see if he gets reps in this game. He was signed seemingly to replace Jack Cochran on the active roster, which would be for mainly special teams reps. He is a career journeyman, so we will see what goes on there with him. Will they bring him back next season, or was he signed to be a special teamer for the playoffs? Then we have, finally, Christian Roland Wallace. He has played 168 snaps of defense and 235 snaps of special teams. He has been active all year, which means he has a 3-year UDFA contract. The Chiefs have traditionally kept a special teams ace defensive back who can play defense but usually does not. Roland Wallace, however, is dependable enough, has proven to be, in my opinion, dependable enough to be a guy who does both. And eventually, maybe he becomes a core defender for you. He is a guy who certainly could have been drafted. 6 foot tall, 201 pounds. Those numbers both check out. 32.5-inch arms, that is 75th percentile. 4'6", 440. That's where you get into a little bit of trouble. But if you go digging through rosters in the NFL, there are 4'6", 40s all over in defensive back rooms across the NFL. His shuttle drill's not great either. Decent vertical at 37.5 inches, decent bench number at 17. but he has shown ability on the field. Hasn't particularly popped, hasn't particularly looking great, but he has proven that he can hold his own on an NFL field. I did not list any of the other young defensive backs because I'm not sure what I want to see there. I'm not sure if I want to see Jaden Hicks in this game because I think Jaden Hicks might be the best safety on the roster right now. Is he young? Yes. Could he use the reps? Yes. Do I want to see him stand the chance of getting injured? I don't think so. What about Brian Cook? What about? So many young guys on this roster. I'm not sure who I want to see out there besides Christian Roland Wallace. So those are my thoughts on the game and what to watch in the game versus the Broncos. What are yours? If you find yourself here by chance but not design, the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week, and I hope to have you back for the next one.